The Philadelphia 76ers have had a successful regular season so far. They look like true contenders in the Eastern Conference and have a chance at getting the #1 overall seed. They've gone all in on a roster that features Joel Embiid, James Harden, and up-and-coming star Tyrese Maxey. And now they'll try to put the finishing touch on a squad that has championship aspirations. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another trade deadline preview. In this video, we're going to interview Romp 2.0. He has a YouTube channel covering the 76ers called Sixers Talk with Romp. There's a link in the description box below. I got his thoughts on what the Sixers should do at this year's NBA trade deadline, and at the end of this thing, I'll put together a couple trade ideas. This is the 8th trade deadline preview. I'm going to try and drop 13 to 14 of these things on the most important teams. There was also a big trade today with Kyrie Irving going to the Mavericks. I will have a video on that, so check out all the other content on the channel and subscribe as we're getting closer to 1,000 subs. Also, this trade deadline preview is brought to you by BetOnline. If you head over to BetOnline and use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, you'll receive a 50% reward bonus. The Super Bowl's coming up. You can get in on the action. Tons of fun prop bets over there on BetOnline, as well as parlays, live betting, all that fun stuff for you to get in on the action. And with all that being said, let's jump into things. Currently, the Sixers sit at 34-17, good for 3rd place in the Eastern Conference. They're a top 10 team on both sides of the floor, which is always a good mark for a contender, and their biggest strength is how they outplay teams from behind the arc. They do a good job shooting the 3 ball, and they do a good job defending it. They get to the free throw line a ton, no surprise with Embiid and James Harden, and I just realized that this graphic says James Harden, which means I need to fix it. There, that's much better. Now, some of the biggest weaknesses that the Sixers might look to address is their play at the rim. Their rim finishing and their rim protection haven't been great, which is surprising to see. They're bottom 10 in the league at opponent rim efficiency as well as their own efficiency on the inside. Very surprising for a Joel Embiid-led team. And also, they're not the best offensive rebounding team. They do have a trade exception, but it's very minimal. I don't know if it'll make a difference in this trade. And they are barely over the luxury tax at a little less than $2 million. The Sixers could definitely look to duck the luxury tax since they are so close to it. They could make a cost-cutting trade. In terms of trading for upgrades, it's going to be tough because the Sixers have no tradable future first. We'll look at those picks in a second. They're likely looking for big depth, and they're likely to be active in the buyout market as a contender without many avenues for trade. Now let's take a look at their contracts. Currently, the Sixers are paying Tobias Harris the most money on this roster at $37.6 million. When you combine Harris, Joel Embiid, and James Harden, they're making over $100 million. PJ Tucker was their big free agent signing this past offseason. This signing did hard cap the Sixers, so they can't add more than $6 million at this year's trade deadline. And then DeAnthony Melton has been a really good pickup for them as well. In terms of trying to duck the tax, you could see Furkan Korkmaz, Matisse Thybulle, or Daniel House moved. There are rumors around Matisse Thybulle, but there always have been rumors around Matisse Thybulle. And then you got some smaller trade chips as well. Montrezl Harrell, Jaden Springer, Shake Milton, who's on a pretty good contract, and Paul Reed. Now let's look at the Sixers draft pick situation, which is dire. They've traded away their 2023 first and can't trade their 2024 first due to the Stepien rule. They also owe a 2025 first to OKC, which is protected through 2027. Due to the Stepien rule and because it backs up those protections, they can't trade a 2026 first. The Sixers owe a 2027 first, but that has to convey 2 years after their 2025 first conveys. The likelihood that one of these picks gets traded a year later makes it so that the Sixers can't effectively trade their 2029 first round pick. They could put the wording on it that it conveys 2 years after their 2027 first conveys to Brooklyn, but that first could be delayed because of the 2025 first, and you can't trade out a 2030 first. So no team is going to value a 2029 first round pick from Philadelphia that would be very unlikely to actually get traded to them. The Sixers don't even have second round picks either. They had a couple second round picks forfeited due to tampering, and the 2027 and 2028 second round picks back up the protections on the first round picks that they already owe. Their only tradable second round pick is in 2029. This makes it very hard for the Sixers to pull off a trade, but there still are some avenues in which they can get things done. And with that being said, let's discuss some of those possibilities with Romp. Anyway, now we bring on Romp from Sixers Talk with Romp. You can find the link to his channel down in the description box below for all your Sixers needs. Romp, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's a pleasure to be here for some trade deadline talk. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. So your Sixers are playing phenomenal basketball so far this season, at least when they're healthy. What's your take on the Sixers so far this season?
Well, it started off rocky, a ton of injuries as well, but overall, it's been pretty good. Third seed right now, and it seems like they're really getting going. Hopefully, we could stay healthy, and if I mean, the biggest question is, can Joel Embiid stay healthy for a full postseason? Because thus far in his NBA career, he hasn't been able to. But if he does, I truly think they can really take down anyone. Maybe not the Celtics, but they have a chance against pretty much everyone besides them.
Yeah, so obviously, trade deadline coming up, looking to bolster that rotation, but Doc Rivers made an interesting rotation move in terms of bringing Tyrese Maxey off the bench in favor of DeAnthony Melton. Do you like that decision? What's your opinion on that?
Um, I like it because in the starting lineup now, you kind of have a guy in DeAnthony Melton who's a better defender than Tyrese Maxey, and James Harden and Tyrese Maxey as a backcourt defensively, especially when James Harden doesn't want to, give effort, which is most nights in the regular season if it's not a pivotal game. Then you have DeAnthony Melton, who's a very good defender, hustles a lot, and can guard pretty much anyone. And also, you got a guy on offense where you really don't have to worry about getting him shots, and he doesn't really need the ball in his hands to thrive. While Maxi, he thrives on ball, and with Joel Embiid and James Harden, he really doesn't play on ball. So it's a good opportunity with him running the bench unit for a couple of minutes for him to get in a rhythm. And you saw against the Clippers, he had a game where he took over in the third quarter. He took over in the first half as well, and he really played well. Now there have been games where he hasn't been that great in terms of running his own unit, but it really helps him get in a rhythm. And then once again in the starting unit, you don't have to worry about getting him shots. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter because most times Tyrese Maxey ends the game. But I think it gives the Sixers a little more depth off the bench and also helps their bench unit without James Harden and Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the more interesting decisions. And then PJ Tucker is still starting right now. I was looking at his stat line. He's playing 26 minutes per game and averaging a whopping 3 points per game as a starter. Do you think the Sixers can get by with that little offensive production from a starter in the playoffs? Or do you think that's something that they need to address at this year's trade deadline?
I think in terms of the power forward position and just overall with the roster, they definitely need more size. I think they're one of the shortest teams in the league. And sometimes PJ Tucker, that really hinders him defensively. But there have been great moments from PJ Tucker, even though he's not scoring a lick. Like offensively, he's terrible. Like, let's just get that straight. He's terrible. I believe he's shooting like 40% from three, maybe. I forget. But basically, he's a non-factor offensively. But I will say offensively, he's always in the right spot. James Harden and Joel Embiid love playing with him. And he doesn't, when he gets the rock, he gets rid of it right away and goes into like a dribble handoff. So although he's like not going to score, he'll get like offensive rebounds, clutch offensive rebounds. And then defensively, we never had a guy who could handle Kevin Durant. And he had a lot of success in the Brooklyn matchup against Kevin Durant. And then recently he locked up Nikola Jokic in the second half. So I think obviously we overpaid for him, but that was the only way we were going to get him if we overpaid. But Joel Embiid wanted him and James Harden loves him. So I don't know. But the thing is, I think you're going to find out if PJ Tucker was worth the money in the postseason, depending on the matchup, because I don't trust Matisse Thybulle on a Jason Tatum, on a Kevin Durant, on those types of players for a long period of time because he'll get in foul trouble. While PJ Tucker, although he'll let him shoot over him, he can like body them and kind of keep them in check and play tough physical defense and hustle. He's probably our best bet against those matchups because you don't want to have Tobias Harris on those types of players for a whole playoff series because he's not that great of a defender. You don't want to have Matisse Thybulle on them because he's just going to get in foul trouble. So I think his value will be shown in the playoffs. and that's when we're really going to see. So I can't really get on PJ too much right now. I think another power forward, like another addition at that spot, would help, like a Jalen McDaniels or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Matisse Thybulle, it seems like he's been in trade rumors for years. Do you think the Sixers should hang on to him, or do you think they should look to finally move him?
I think they should keep him because I've always been a Matisse hater, honestly. But this year, I think, like, if you look at his stats, like 2 points per game, like, you would be like, oh, he's been terrible. But honestly, I think it's his best year. I think he's the Sixers' best cutter. I think offensively, he can now put the ball on the floor and dribble and just get rid of it. It seems like he's smarter on that end of the floor, so he's not as much of a zero offensively, and his shot has been better. He's shooting 33%, only one attempt per game. But like the thing is, now there's all of a sudden trade rumors about him again, and I'm like, he's finally good, and we're gonna trade him. And in the playoffs, you need wing players who can play defense. Although he does tend to get in foul trouble, a guy off the bench who could handle, Jimmy Butler, Trae Young, whatever, Jason Tatum, who can give some energy and get steals. Like he's been playing very well recently. And I saw the Warriors pop up in a trade rumor that they want him, and I would be like, oh my, he would thrive in that system as an off-ball player. And I'm sure Draymond would teach him a few things of how not to foul, how not to gamble, and stuff like that. So I think if the Sixers want to win it all, I think they got to keep him because it's just another guy who can go out there, play some defense, and his shot has been, I mean, fine. 33% for him is like 40%.
Yeah. Yeah, just having that extra body that you can throw up against those offensive
Mm-hmm.
stars that always seem to put guys in foul trouble is something that I like having on a team. And I just talked with Evan Giddings, who works the radio there in the Bay. I talked to him about Matisse Thybulle. That's a part of my Warriors preview. So if you're watching this, check that out afterwards. But I think the Warriors are kind of missing Gary Payton II right now, and it'll be interesting to see if they miss him in the playoffs. And I was wondering if maybe the Warriors look to a Matisse Thybulle to replace some of that defensive production that GP2 brought them. But Matisse Thybulle just seems like he's the next Miles Turner in terms of a guy that's always in trade rumors and never gets traded. Anyway, what are the 76ers' biggest needs that you think they need to address at this year's trade deadline?
Number one, I would say backup center because let me tell you, Tori, if you run a pick and roll with your co-host Eric Brandt, you're scoring against Montrezl Harrell. I'm not even kidding. He's one of the worst rim protectors I've ever seen in my lifetime. And the thing is, he's supposed to be this high flyer. He can't get off the ground anymore. So his biggest asset, being like a lob threat, is completely gone. He's missing easy layups. Paul Reed should be playing, but Doc Rivers does not trust Paul Reed. And honestly, I don't think James Harden likes Paul Reed because whenever they run a pick and roll, he never wants to pass to Paul Reed. Like Paul Reed will be open, and if it was Joel Embiid, James Harden would want to take that risk. But with Paul Reed, James Harden doesn't trust him. And also, there was like rumors before the draft. I heard that Paul Reed like doesn't know the plays. Like that was a big weakness in his draft profile. And I kind of see that too because it seems like he doesn't really know what he's doing half the time. But defensively, he's great. But once again, he gets in foul trouble too. Doc Rivers doesn't trust him. I don't know if the team and players trust him. It seems like he doesn't know where to be. So backup center for sure. And then probably just like another body at the wing position, a two-way wing, like every team needs.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, who are some of your favorite trade targets for the Sixers?
Nas Reed is probably like my dream scenario. That's probably unrealistic. And honestly, I don't know why the T Wolves would even want to trade him. But that's another discussion for another day. I think a realistic target that's probably going to happen is Andre Drummond because he played for us and he had a lot of success. And he said in an interview like a couple weeks ago that he really loved Philly. Daryl Morey loves Andre Drummond. The city loves him, and the Bulls, they seem to be sellers or whatever. And I think that could be a potential backup option that is realistic. I like Zach Collins as well because he can provide offensively like another guy you can give the ball to and just run off like backdoor cuts, and he has the passing ability. And I think he would help Tyrese Maxey run the second unit because Tyrese Maxey, one of his weaknesses is sometimes he gets a little, scoring happy and doesn't do the playmaking so well. So I think having a guy you can give the ball to and play make as a big man would help out a lot. And I'm looking at the Spurs, and I see they don't really have a point guard for the future. Trey Jones maybe, but not really. And we have Jaden Springer sitting there who's not going to get minutes anytime soon. So I think they would take a guy like Jaden Springer who is going to be an elite defender. His offense is a little suspect. I think they would be interested in Jaden Springer and then just add like a Furkan Korkmaz, add a second-round pick maybe. I think Zach Collins and Andre Drummond would be the most realistic, and Naz Reid would be like, please, but it would never happen.
Yeah, so after this interview, I'll have a couple trade ideas. I'll focus on centers for you. Naz Reid's always been a favorite of mine. I'm a big Naz Reid fan. I'm a big Zach Collins fan as he played at Gonzaga, who I'm a fan of, and for my Portland Trailblazers. So I think Zach Collins would be fantastic because not only could he back up Embiid, but he has the floor spacing and the mobility. Yep. I think that you could play next to him. So that is a really good trade target, in my opinion. Anyway, this has been insightful, man. Thank you for coming on. Feel free to plug whatever you want to plug.
Sixers Talk with Romp, Romp 2.0, and thanks for having me.
Yep, and they're all linked in the description box below. Thank you, man. Good luck to your Sixers.
Thank you. Good luck to your Blazers.
We need it. Anyway, a huge thank you to Romp for being the interview for this video. You can find his information down in that description box below. Now let's talk about a couple trade ideas. In the Warriors trade deadline preview, I had Matisse Thybulle to the Warriors for Moses Moody. You should definitely go check out that video if you haven't. And that trade was based on the rumors that the Warriors want Matisse Thybulle. I thought giving up Moses Moody was far too much value for the Warriors, so I don't think that trade is likely, and if I was the Warriors, I would probably say no. But if they really want Matisse Thybulle and are willing to give up Moses Moody, that is a guy I'd look hard at for the Sixers, not only for themselves, but they could also swing him in a 3-team deal like this one. In this trade, the Sixers flip Moody to the Timberwolves and get back Naz Reid, who Romp said he was a fan of. I'm a fan of him too. That could definitely help the backup big spot, and Reid could play next to Joel Embiid in some bigger lineups. And I think the Timberwolves would be smart to trade Naz Reid, who's an unrestricted free agent this offseason, for a young guy with some upside who's under contract for multiple years. The most iffy part of this trade, of course, comes down to the Warriors trading Moses Moody for Matisse Thybulle. If Matisse Thybulle doesn't have enough value to swing anything the Sixers' way, then their best trade chip is probably Shake Milton. The Sixers have a 3-guard lineup set in stone with James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and DeAnthony Melton. I think Shake Milton is a piece that they can move off of, especially considering the fact that he's an unrestricted free agent this upcoming offseason. I think Milton will likely sign elsewhere and look for a bigger role, but if a team has that role for him this season, you could see them swinging a trade for him. He's averaging 10 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists on an efficient 50% from the field and 39% from 3 in 22 minutes a game. So he could be the first guard off the bench for a good team. Maybe the Timberwolves would want him. Jalen Noel is kind of fallen out of favor there in Minnesota. D'Angelo Russell might get traded elsewhere. I could see the Timberwolves taking a liking to Shake Milton for Naz Reid, but you could trade Shake Milton to a number of teams for a big man. Maybe the Washington Wizards for Daniel Gafford. If the Sixers make a splash, I would bet that it's Shake Milton getting traded elsewhere. He's a really good player that Sixers fans love. Tough to give up on, but he is the 4th guard. And with Jaden Springer being a long-term developmental piece, I think the Sixers would be smart to shop Shake Milton for some big man depth. Anyway, my prediction for the Sixers is they make more of a splash in the buyout market than the trade market given their lack of assets, but let me know what you think the Sixers should do. Is there any trade ideas you can come up with that you think the Sixers should take a look at? Let me know down in the comment section below. Once again, thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this trade deadline preview. BLEAV is that promo code for those 50% rewards, and I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, peace.